Do we actually, hold up, let me see. Do we actually have you? Do you hear me? Do we actually, hold up, let me see. James, do you hear me?
Yo, can you hear me? Can you
All
hear
right, do
me?
you hear me here? No?
Hold on.
Hey, can you say something?
Yo.
All right, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, man. Not working. Why is this shit? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. That was the most complicated Zoom login, but I think we're good.
I don't. It's buzzy on my end, so that's not
Oh,
good.
it's buzzy?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, we just gonna forget about that. We can hear each other. I just hired somebody for this, bro. So you know why, right?
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Dude, let me tell you, I have many in IT people who do this for me because it there have been bigger people than you that have made this not go right because it's crazy.
Yeah, hold on. Let me go on YouTube, man, and then we're gonna go straight to it, bro. We're not gonna let nobody stop us. Live on YouTube. Yeah, man. I literally just hired the guy this morning, so hey, he's on break right now, bro. So
So you know what I usually do whenever I do these things is that I go through like next time have somebody come in 15 minutes early with you to do your scout thing. Is the guy like a Fiverr guy or is he like
no, it's a guy actually stay here in Atlanta, man. He know what he doing with the media stuff. I just need an extra hand.
yeah, having them around because this is Zoom when you do your thing is like major.
Yeah, man. So looks like we're live on YouTube. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna just jump straight into it, bro. So
Yep.
been having
Yep.
technical difficulties for sure. Um, I wonder how we look on YouTube. It looks kind of weird. Um, I don't know why it's looking like that.
Uh-oh. Have you done one of these before?
No, man, it's my first one, bro. So, hey, hey, I'm the type of guy that's just gonna get it started, man, and learn from there, man. So let's get it, man. I'm ready.
Is it working? I mean, I haven't seen it. Is a picture there for your YouTube or no?
Side by side. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, so let's talk about this new president we have. Let's
Yep.
talk about how this is going to affect our stock market portfolio, how it's going to affect our 401ks, investing in the future, what are VCs and hedge funds and everything going to do, because that
Yeah.
changed the landscape of investing. So, um,
Yeah, I always, you know me, I always start with like interest rates and banks, the most boring piece, because they'll give you some level of direction. For everyone who's out there, COVID-19 created a disruption in the economy, and the GDP, or the gross domestic product, went down.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, whenever the economy really starts to stall, the Federal Reserve creates a very easy monetary policy. What they do is they basically start printing money. Things become cheaper.
Right.
Things cheaper, it really helps out the stock market. Now, with the election and with COVID, kind of like people are seeing these vaccines and they're seeing these therapies. They're kind of seeing, the other side. The whole question is sorry about that. Sorry. The whole question is, what's going to happen to the interest rates? Because there are signs that the economy is getting better. And usually when the economy gets better, unemployment dips, and the GDP goes up, the Fed starts to stop printing money. That actually causes interest rates to go up, but that creates negative pressure on the stock market. So at this point, everybody's trying to look at, that's what you call monetary policy, what the Fed is going to do, and compare that to fiscal policy, which is, what type of stimulus is the government going to do? We've got a bunch of Democrats in the White House. They want to put close to $2 trillion into the economy. But there's like a push and pull, between the two. And that's why you've seen over the past month or so, the tech stocks have done pretty well, but also, the reopening trade has also done well because nobody knows, which one's going to happen.
Right.
I'd say ultimately, the reopening stocks are gonna come into favor. These are your value stocks, but nobody knows when, and so everyone's trying to guess and trying to time it all, which is really hard to do as a long-term investor. One of the best pieces of advice is that I got was, you make more money by putting some money in and reviewing your portfolio once a year than you do by looking at it like I do and trying to trade every day. Right. So those are some things to look at. So Biden, all the things that Biden is changing from a policy perspective, have actually done quite well since the election, not since the inauguration, but since the election. You look at cannabis, right? You got a bunch of Democrats, in the office, is a Democrat. So they're thinking that the federal policy towards cannabis is going to be lightened up. So Aurora, Canopy, those stocks have really taken off. If you look at,
well, hold on, let me ask you this. So you're saying the stocks went up, but I know when Biden was like kind of campaigning, a lot of people who were in that industry were kind of worried because of previously things he said when he was a senator about marijuana and things like that. And he was the crime bill, that was his thing. And a lot of people went to jail for petty crimes. Right. So are you basically saying it's reversing now? Now he's the president?
Yeah. So it's not just that he's the president, right? It's just that there's a progressive caucus that's in the House, especially. And also, if you look at the state elections, there were more Democrats that were elected. And so the thought is that this is going to be easier than a conservative Republican Senate to pass these cannabis-friendly laws, right? And so these stocks have gone up probably 20%, if not more, since the inauguration. And there have been some mergers and acquisitions in that space as well. So, that's one, if you consider kind of like a long-term sector that will likely, the question is all this built into the stock right now, or is this something where it can continue, to grow and grow, long term. And so, the guy's going to be there for 4 years, him or Kamala, right? So right. You got to think that it's going to be there. Another, what do Democrats like? Democrats like the environment, right? So a whole nother sector of clean energy has exploded since that has taken place. Now, clean energy is complex, okay? Because there are a lot of big oil, like Chevron, that invest a ton into clean energy, right? You don't think that they have done so.
Right.
But solar energy, like First Solar, these stocks have gone up tremendously since the first month was when Biden was elected, but when the Democrats won in Atlanta, that's gone up a lot as well. Electric vehicles, right? Hydrogen fuel, like Plug Power, these have gone up 50%. I mean, crazy numbers.
Right.
But Teslas of the world, NIO, the Chinese electric car company, gone up significantly. So, these are democratic, bread and potato industries that, again, if you get a stimulus package, look out for those investments into those democratic, type of sectors, right?
What
Even when
about
you, yeah, go ahead.
what about big tech, right? Because I feel like they were on Capitol Hill every other. It seems like the last 4 years they were on Capitol Hill. Somebody from big tech was on Capitol Hill every other month, and it was a big news story. And it seemed like once Trump lost, they just turned on him because they know now that the Democrats are in power. They won the House. So now they blocked him on Twitter. They blocked him on almost every social media I can think of. He's blocked them now. So
Well,
it's kind of like.
But so it's interesting, right? If you look at those stocks, when they blocked him, those stocks went down, right?
Yeah, Twitter went down 15%. Yes, I saw that.
And the reason is, if half of America is Republican, right? And then 80% of them think that, the election has been stolen from them. They're no longer going to utilize those platforms. And so that revenue base may not be as great, right? That's why Facebook, Twitter, all of them went down. Twitter was the most, right? Because that was the vehicle that he used. But then, I'd say in the past just 3 days, Fang has been killing it. Fang, I mean, I think Netflix was up 14% yesterday.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is, if you really look at Fang over the past 4 or 5 months, Fang has underperformed. Now, over the past year and a half, it's been killing it. Apple, actually Apple's not technically part of Fang, but, Fang plus Apple and Microsoft, right? The larger tech companies. They've just been kind of towing the line. But what's been killing it? This reopening trade. Delta, retail, Macy's, all that stuff's gone up. But they've just been like this.
I was in Delta. I got out at like 31 and it's at 40 now. So
yeah. Well, it's understanding, like, the reason why many of these, so the companies that are reopening, the companies that are tied to the economy are called cyclical stocks, right? These cyclical stocks do well when the economy is doing well, but if the economy is doing poorly, but their competition is going away, all these small businesses that didn't have the loans, all they're doing is capturing. And so they're growing. So at the other end of this, these huge mega companies, the Costco's, TJX, Ralph Lauren, Capri Holdings, these designer, kind of companies, they just got bigger, and if they invested and they're doing e-commerce, they gotten real big.
Right.
So there's a reason why it's not just, a lot of people can't understand is like, if everything is shut down, why are these stock prices the same as before we start, right? So why is, Ralph Lauren, PVH, close to its all-time highs, which is really not, but let's just say there was, when they can't even, then the malls aren't even open. It's because they have loans and they can tread water. And when they open, there's going to be no competition. And what's people going to do? They're all going to want to buy new clothes. They're all going to want to go out and do things. Another great example is Live Nation, right?
Yeah.
Live Nation, Madison Square Gardens. there are no concerts going on, zero, none, but yet their stock price is near all-time highs, and for people, they're like, what is going on? And so that's the battle between, is this all speculative and a bubble, or are they just going to, are you really looking at 6 months ahead when there's a vaccine and everyone's going out and everyone's going to be utilizing, Live Nation, concerts, Ticketmaster, those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think they said in order for you to go to a major concert like that, I think Ticketmaster put out that you would have to take a COVID test and pass within 24 hours of entering, or obviously you got the vaccine. This was pre-vaccine, so now the vaccine rolled out, so now you can actually take the vaccine, and if you can prove you took the vaccine, then you can come in as well. But I'm not really sure how much of a scale the vaccine has rolled out, especially to communities that really need them.
It hasn't, right? I mean, that's why it's going to Black churches. So, I think that, that I do all this reopening stuff with Hollywood, and I'm helping, them with their projects. And their model right now is 48 hours before coming to work, you need a PCR test in general. In the NBA and so forth, because there are different type of PCR tests and so forth. But that's why, these bedside tests like Eli Lilly, it's at its all-time high stock today because they have an antibody drug that works. So, that they've realized that this is going to be here for a while, right? And everyone thought it would just go away. Even with vaccines, it's still going to be here. And so, again, there's going to be some degree of the stay-at-home play that is going to work. Amazon. Everybody's like, oh, well, everybody's going to go out and everybody's going to go to a mall. Yeah, but a lot of people are still going to be shopping, right? And a lot of people are still going to be using, Amazon Prime for their streaming. And the better Netflix does, and their valuation, the better Amazon's going to do, the better Disney's going to do, because it's validating some of these strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So, for sure. And by the way, let me just tell you, I got my second vaccine yesterday, which is, if you wonder why I'm a little slower today, the second shot, it slows you down a little bit. It's like, oof, the first one, you're like, okay, the second one's kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But then you realize, well, what can I do after my second shot? Man, I could go to Singapore. You know what I mean? I can go to whatever. And in my mind, I'm like, man, if I get a trip, I need it. That's the way millions of people are going to start thinking, even though it's not a get out of jail for free card.
Right.
People are going to want to get out. And that's why the cyclic investing strategy ultimately is going to continue to work. And these cyclic stocks, they do better in high interest rate environments. Like FANG is great, but the 10-year treasury note that deals with interest rates has gone up really, really high lately. And it's not like it's high historically. It's the rate by which it decreased. It was like, boom. And so the fear for investors is that some of these growth stocks that have these huge multiples are going to react negatively at some point, right? Because they can't borrow money as much as they could. Borrowing money is more expensive, so their multiples are going to have to come under some pressure. And so, Lemonade, Fiverr, these guys that are like, Tesla even,
right?
They don't feel some of this pressure. But make no mistake about it. I can't tell you when, because it really depends on the virus, vaccinations, but interest rates are going to go up, right? At some point, at the end of this year, interest rates are going to be higher than they are now. That's going to hurt some of your housing stocks, like Pulte Group, even though it's red hot.
I was going to ask you about that, because I'm big in Rocket Mortgage. That's like my second biggest holding.
Yeah.
And
going pretty well.
United Wholesale Mortgage is going public tomorrow, actually. So
not a bad.
That's a mortgage company as well.
right? And they're going to make money, right? Like, I mean, for historically speaking, interest rates now are at around, if you want to go out and get a house, 3%. When my parents were looking for houses, man, interest rates were 14%.
15, right, or 14, 15%.
Right. So even if it went to, even if it went to to 5%, I remember when it was five, I bought my first house with an interest rate of 5%. I thought it was great, relatively speaking, but now it's obnoxiously low, and
Right.
it's down at 2.25 or whatever. But that's not going to stop people from moving into the suburbs, and that's not going to stop. And so, I'm investing in more and more commodities. Like I'm investing in steel, corn, gold, all of these inflationary index commodities stuff. A little silver, copper. Copper, is more directly tied to.
We can't talk about those type of investments without bringing up Bitcoin. I know you've been watching that. I mean, it went up.
Man,
It's crazy.
yeah,
The
yeah,
amount of return people have had. I remember being at Quicken Loans when I was working there, and it was a guy when the stock went to, I think it went to like 1,800 at one time. Well, not a stock. Well, when Bitcoin went to like 1,800, the guy was sitting there talking about how much money he made, talking about he made $100,000 and all that. If that guy still kept that same amount, he's a multimillionaire right now.
yeah. I mean, there are lots of stocks just like that, right? It's because it's a newer trading class, then it's a little different. I think that like Bitcoin today dropped what, like 12% or something, and the day before it dropped, another 10%. So it's a timing thing. The problem is that it's not based off of any assets, so it's harder for me to. It is supposed to be a good hedge, like you said. Like I totally understand. It's supposed to be a good hedge for the unknown, right? And when things get tough in the market, I can see people starting to pile back into Bitcoin.
Mhm.
I mean, you can do some Bitcoin ETFs on Ameritrade. Um, I am not in Bitcoin because I don't get.
Yeah, I mean, I got a little cousin. He invests in crypto all the time. He talks about it. I'm just like, look, I don't know enough about anything, and when it comes to my money, I would rather sleep well at night, and make 10, 15, 20% in the market in a company that actually provides a product and service that I know is useful,
Yeah.
compared to trying to knock it out the park and do a 10x return on something like Bitcoin where I can lose all of my money, or
Well,
it goes
right.
down 40% in one day, which is ridiculous. I mean, just imagine you waking up, you have a $100,000 investment that goes down and now it's 60,000. A lot of people will pull their hair out.
Yes. I mean, and that can be any. I've lived through markets where the stock market went down, that much, and um, the difference is, again, it's not based off of anything. It's just it's harder for me to do evaluation. I'm not that smart. If I want to be speculative, and I've gotten more speculative, I've started investing in ARC, and innovation ETF, great CEO, SPACs, these holding companies.
Yeah, can we talk about the difference between a SPAC, and an IPO? Because I think sometimes people, especially when they DM me, they try to use it interchangeably, and I'm like, well, there's a difference between the two. Could you talk about the two and the
Yeah,
difference?
so IPOs have all these regulatory concerns, right? You have to disclose a bunch of information. SPACs basically go in and you invest in it, but they don't tell you the companies that they're going to invest in that they're private. You have to just trust that the SPAC is going to do the right thing. That requires much less disclosure. It's much more volatile, but it's easier for companies to become private. Public, go from private to public because they don't have to do any disclosures. So everyone is, all these guys are piling into these SPACs, because it's just easier for them to get out there to the market. Weed Maps, great example. They just were acquired by a SPAC today. So that SPAC, I'm sure, is going to be going crazy tomorrow, right?
Right.
So that's the real difference. As an investor, I invest in both of them, not heavily, but I put a certain portion of my portfolio that's just designed for, a little bit more speculative, situation. Like I said, the market right now is heavy, dude. It's not cheap at all, right? On a earnings basis. And so, I think many people are expecting a correction. The correction is defined as a 10% pullback from its most recent high. However, a lot of people are also assuming that stocks will come back to their all-time highs, by the end of the year, right? So we're thinking that it's still going to be better than it is now. But I think there's going to be, especially when, again, they put out the stimulus, the economy starts looking better, there's going to be a point where the Treasury starts increasing interest rates. And when that day comes, that's going to be a severe jolt to the valuations, especially of growth stocks. Not all growth stocks, but all these growth stocks that have never made a profit, and are worth $1 billion. It's like, so have you made a profit yet? Nope. But we're worth $1 billion. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that.
Do you think so obviously the old administration was more anti-COVID and trying to make it seem, because the economy was the reason most people voted Donald Trump in. Well, most people turned a blind eye to the things he were doing, right? He got voted in because he got voted in. But when he were doing certain things, a lot of people turned a blind eye, especially heavily investors and people with big influence, because the economy was doing pretty well, right? Mm-hmm. Now that Biden is in, do you think those same, do you think people are going to be as, are they going to invest as much? Or do you think the economy and stocks that are more of a stay-at-home play are going to get favored because Biden is taking COVID a lot more serious compared to prioritizing the economy? So do you think stay-at-home stocks like, let's say, a Netflix or even I'll look at Shopify as an e-commerce play, but it's also stay-at-home too, in my opinion, because
you have Shopify, right?
Yeah. Most people, the longer we stay in quarantine, the more valuable having an e-commerce platform becomes. And a lot of these companies that couldn't survive, they can, remodel and be up in business on Shopify. I have Shopify on my website. It's excellent.
I agree with you. I think it just depends on the stock. Netflix is going to go up because the reason why Netflix went up is that it's finally profitable. I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong language, because they will no longer need a loan from the bank. Okay. Mm-hmm. And huge for Netflix because they always have to make their own content and buy their own content and all this other kind of stuff. They announced, that, by doing that, they're basically independent from banks, and if you raise the price, which they're going to do, you may lose some people, but that revenue is just it's going to be killer, right? I mean, it's not just that it's a stay-at-home play, but it's their internal economics that make it, the reason why it is. Amazon is different. Amazon I think Amazon has changed the way we use retail, because I know before COVID, I used to say, well, I can do a little Amazon, but I like to go out because I don't think that Amazon has everything that I need. But now I know, generally speaking, Amazon has everything that I want, right? And so I think that's changed behavior where just people, they're going to keep using it. Microsoft, they just, partnered with an electric vehicle company 2 days ago.
I didn't see that. Who do they partner with?
Yeah, they just partnered to do all of their software with, and I forgot the name of it. But but that's huge for them, right? So now they just entered a completely different market, and Microsoft, I mean, is going to keep running the world. Google, again, people's price targets for Google are insane because once the economy starts revving back up, they make their money off of ad revenue, and so they're gonna kill it. But right now they've been making a lot of money because of YouTube. I mean, like they have different fingers in different places. Facebook has always had a lower multiple than the rest of them, and so can they do better? The regulatory questions are the big unknown. Whether, like you said, the government is going to come in, break them up, like that's what you don't know. And ironically, they could be worth more as individual pieces than they would be, broken up.
Yeah, I think Instagram is worth a lot more individually because it's the most complex app and it has the best features that all work. Like if you go on Facebook now, they're always trying different things out on Facebook, like that Facebook, the app. But Instagram is they roll out new features and it's like water. It keeps flowing like Reels is popping right now on Instagram. I get the best engagement, the best reach on Reels, and that's kind of a play off TikTok. Stories obviously is a play off Snapchat. IGTV is a play off YouTube. So like all Instagram has the full play. Facebook, I don't know, man. As a business owner and trying to grow, and you're just starting out, it's really, really hard on Facebook compared to on Instagram.
Right. Well, Facebook started again. They diversified into Facebook Shops, right? So small, they're basically the Shopify equivalent, right? And Facebook Shops has been accredited with, keeping a bunch of small businesses alive. Now, whether that is a new that's something new for them, right? So, post COVID. And so, like I said, I think a lot of these guys, I wouldn't bet against them. I don't trade Fang. I invest in Fang. They just sit there. You know what I mean? The only one that I sold a while ago was Amazon, because I just wanted to make some money and take some profits. But they're all just sitting there. They're just great companies, great leadership. Who else are you going to look to for innovation? And I'll tell you this: when the market gets really turbulent, which is I think it's about to do, people are going to.
What do you mean by turbulent? Explain that.
No, I think that there's going to be a correction. I think we're going to go down. We're a little frothy. I don't think it's going to last very long, but it's going to happen. But when that does happen, what do people want to do? They pile into safety. Historically, safety has been bonds, but because interest rates are so low, nobody wants to put all their money into bonds. What's the next safest thing that they do? The good, tried and faithful stocks, large growth stocks that have, gotten them here to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And so, there's definitely a, I think it's going to be interesting. I think that you're going to see around where the overall market, both cyclical and non-cyclical stocks, are going to go down. Because it's a healthy thing, and you got to tell people 10% corrections, 15% corrections happen all the time. They happen every year. You know what I mean? So to think that it's not going to happen this year would be foolish, right? So everyone's made a lot of money. And so, by the way, a lot of people are like, well, if you know that the market eventually is going to go down, why don't you just sell your stocks and take money? I am, but not all of them because of taxes, right? So if you sell your stocks within a year of acquiring them, you have to pay ordinary income tax. If you sell them after a year, all you have to do is pay capital gains. So a lot of people just keep these investments out as long as they can, so that when they do have to sell, it's not just that tax liability. So you have to think about, it's not just what you earn, but it's what you keep. And that's why I do a mixture of investing and trading, because I'm very aware of the tax ramification. You and I, we talk about options. I mean, that's one way to help deal with kind of the tax liability. That's also why you see a lot of people right now piling into options because they see this as well. It's
Right.
just a cheaper way to protect yourself.
As somebody who has wealth, right? A lot of us are small business owners, especially people who follow my page. Somebody who has wealth, talk about the implications of taxes, because I feel like
Yeah.
in our mind we can't wrap our head around, paying that much in taxes when we make these sales. I feel like people on Robinhood trading, making $1,000, $2,000 don't understand how trading in and out of stocks and assets can cause a huge problem in tax season.
Right. So the difference would be, let's just say that specifically your question was about high income investors.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking fully about, what state income tax you have. But in your example, if I'm in the highest tax income bracket and I make $100,000, I decide to sell all my shares for $100,000. If I do it within a year, that will cost me around 47%, right? If I wait until after I've had them for a year, I'm going to be taxed at like 20%.
Right.
What should you do? Those are so as much as it goes down, you still think, well, I'll still save money because of capital gains. And losses are a little different because let's just say I bought, Shopify at 1,500 and now it sits at around 1,000. So I lost $500 a share. Well, if it lost $100,000, that helps me with my taxes because then I can write off those short-term capital gain losses. So, it kind of goes both ways. But if you've made money, be very careful as to when you want to sell it, especially if you're in higher income tax brackets, because that income then is, I live in California. California has one of the largest state income taxes. I mean, I could be taxed at, 53%,
So I just read the article about the executive order Joe Biden did, signing back into the Paris Agreement. How does that affect stocks, and what companies will that affect the most, or what industries will that affect?
Again, the clean energy stocks, man, like the Plug Power, which is the hydrogen fuels cell stock, the Teslas, the Neos, the solar powered stocks. Those are just going to do. The thing is that they've already had a really good run. You know what I mean? And so when you guys start investing in stocks, make sure that you just don't look at it under a 1 day or 5 day or 1 month. Under all of these kind of investment platforms, look under like the 3 month and 1 year, cost for some of these stocks so that you can have some perspective. You know what I mean? Like, again, I think that they're still going to grow and that people are going to ultimately invest in them. But I would definitely dollar cost average. In other words, I wouldn't put all my money into it tomorrow. I'd put a little bit of money at a time because you may be able to catch. And I would actually do this for any stock right now at the level of the market because you may be able to catch some of these on sale in a month or two. So make sure you have some money on the sidelines. So just little pieces.
We got a question in about Amazon. They said, do you think Amazon is going to do a stock split?
I mean, it could. It's expensive enough to do it. If it did, the price would go up just like every other. It makes no sense, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's around 3,200 right now. Most of the analysts are saying it's going to be 3,500 to 4,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if I'm that bullish, 4,000, but it's one of the more favored stocks in the market for sure.
Okay,
I mean,
let me ask you this about the current administration. Now, Biden is pausing student loans, the interest payments on that until I believe the executive order was September 3rd.
Mhm.
So at this point, it's almost a year and some change where people like me who still have student loans haven't paid their student loans or any interest on them. How do you think that is going to affect the economy if let's say they do write a check and say, hey, we're canceling $10,000 in student loans.
I was about to say that's what they're going to do, right? I mean, I think that the appetite is there from the progressive Democratic wing that they're going to cancel some student loans. I don't know how much, but that's how you deal with that. Is that I mean, that's the easy way to put money into the pockets um, of individuals. You can give them a stimulus check for $2,000, or you can write off, that debt. I think that they're going to have an accommodative policy at Fannie Mae, especially when they start, going through this. But again, it all is relative to what the economy is looking like. If the economy is poor, they're not going to just, start back up payments when people can't get jobs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think people don't understand. It's hard. Like when let's say I go to the mall, right? It's hard for somebody like me or somebody regular. I mean, I understand how the economy works, but the average person who doesn't really understand, if you go in the mall, it's hard to think that we're in a pandemic because the malls are full. Gucci is 50 people outside of Gucci. So it's like it's a dancing act, it's a balancing act I think they have to make, because if they cut PPP and all those loans and the unemployment vouchers everybody's getting, then people are not going to be at work. But if you keep doing it, now people are not going to be motivated to go to work because I'm making more money sitting at home than I am going to work at Target for $12 an hour.
So you make a really, really good point. And this is why the stock market is got two, the stay-at-home people and the reopening trade people. Because for the audience members, where do you live? James, where do you live?
I live in Atlanta.
Right. Atlanta is open. Okay. I got a show that I'm doing there. They are open, right? I live in LA. It is a ghost town in LA, right? And so what really is tough is taking in your personal bias, right? In that my perspective, I think if I'm a Californian, I'm thinking everything stay at home, right? You talk about malls, and malls haven't been open here since. Oh, I mean, malls been open here, like no one goes to malls,
The whole mall is not open at all.
No, dude, they raise it up. It's at one point they had 20% capacity that could go in. It's tough. Like there's nothing. You all have clubs that are open. You all have bars that are open. We don't have any of that.
I don't know what's not open in Atlanta, honestly.
Right. We don't have.
I don't know what's not open.
Correct. And it's crazy because, like I said, I was talking to my friend who's an ER doc, and he's like, "Dude, man, this COVID is going crazy," And so, it's almost like a push and pull. How many people in Atlanta are investing in the stock market? I don't know. How many people in LA are investing? Because everyone is betting off of their own perspective of what is really going on, right? So I'll tell you, my timeline is longer because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know when these vaccines are coming out. The kids are not in school. Like nothing's happening. Right? So if you're a LA investor, you're probably going to buy a bunch of, Amazon and Fiverr and all this other kind of stuff. But if you're like, man, I want to go and get PVH and Capri and some of the mall chains, because that's just what you're seeing in everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, I would honestly say, staying down here in Atlanta, I would say Georgia, the state of Georgia, closed down for 2 weeks. It literally closed down for 2 weeks. we were the last to close and the first to open because our governor was the first. Georgia was the first state to open up, and then I believe Florida followed path, and then a couple other states. But Atlanta was shut down for about the city of Atlanta was shut down probably for about a month and a half. Keisha Lance Bottom, the mayor, she was able to hold people for about a month and a half. Then after that, it was a wrap. I mean, all the clubs are open. And here's another thing. I was talking to my barber about this, and here's the reason. It may be political or whatever. You can take it as you want. But the governor did not. The governor of Georgia, he did not shut down, and he wanted to open back up because there's a lot of 1099 type of work or like independent contractors and like barbers, hairstylists, dancers, Uber drive. It's a whole bunch of those people down, especially in Atlanta. And basically, he was going to have to pay them unemployment. So prevent the state from going bankrupt or even getting close, he said, no, we're just going to open up and you can do what you want. So if you don't want to open up your doors, you don't have to. If you do, you want to take drastic measures. But if not, that's you. If you go out of business, that's really on you. So that's his attitude. And, the whole state of Georgia and basically Atlanta, where 90% of the people stay, that's been their attitude.
Right. And so, Dallas is like that. The middle of America. By the way, shout out to Keisha and and all the Black women who have been repping hard. Kamala, Howard alumni that she is. It's wonderful having us kind of sit back and see these women kind of, really show what Black excellence is about. But it just shows her ability to manage, very difficult situations. But again, as an investor, all I'm thinking about is I think the world is going to look more like Atlanta than California, and by the end of the year. And so, there are going to be moments where you're going to see, the thing is there. But I have a very diversified portfolio at this point. Like I definitely have, the cannabis and the solar power and the bread and butter Democratic stuff. But I have like retail, I have Delta, I have Marriott and travel, because I think that in the end, I can't tell you when, that's where it's going to be, and like if I looked at my portfolio, you hear something crazy. If I looked as a percentage of my winners, I've had Shopify, Apple, all these stocks. My biggest winner, actually, I take it. My biggest winner is Nvidia because I've been talking about.
I was gonna bring that up, but I was gonna let you finish.
But my second biggest winner is Macy's. Dude, I have made, the most boring stock in America.
I remember when you was telling me about investing in Macy's, and I was like, I don't know, because they was restructuring. They was restructuring their debt, which was a red flag for me. And then they were talking about going into getting out of malls. So that was kind of good, but they were talking about going into like a TJ Maxx model. And I was like, so you still gonna do commercial? And they wasn't really prioritizing e-commerce. So I'm like, you're still talking about doing a TJ Maxx model in the middle of the pandemic. So that kind of raised my red flags for me. But I remember you telling me that, and I'm like, I don't know. And
it's kind of like, look for the dogs, like, sometimes invest in the best companies that you can. But when I was telling you that, I invested in Under Armour. And I remember seeing this you and I talked about it, saw this interview with the CEO of Under Armour. And I said, this guy doesn't impress me at all, just doesn't impress me. But I put money into it just because it's a reopening trade. And I made a lot of money on that. So, that's when we start talking about, you can go with Bitcoin and, Tesla or whatever, but the fundamentals of stock investing hasn't changed. You know what I mean? Like, buy low and sell high. Like, that's what you do, and you don't have to take more risk than you need. Because like you said, don't get greedy, You can make man, you make 20% on any year in the stock market. You've done well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, if you can compound 20% annually, dude, you get so wealthy. Like,
I mean, you can compound 10% annually. You do well, right? I mean, and that's like putting it into an index fund and not really thinking about it, right? Like that's kind of like what that number represents. But if you really, take extra time, do your research, and do what hopefully, the folks that are on this are doing, you can, there's not always going to be good years, you know what I mean? But even in your bad years, you take that as opportunity to invest your money. But if any of y'all watch VC right now, everyone, all these hedge fund managers, because you were talking about them, they're all talking about how frothy the market is. I think it depends on what you're looking at. It's definitely becoming a stock pickers market as opposed to these general ETFs. So, just be very wary. Like I said, I think there's a correction that's probably going to be here in the next month or two. So be able to take advantage of it and sell a little bit. Pay your taxes even if it's short term, but go and take advantage of it.
you told me about something dealing with taxes and trading in stocks that I think a lot of people would benefit from. You talked about how if you sell a stock, I believe if you sell a stock at a loss in one industry, you can't just jump right back in, right? Could you explain
Right.
that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's say you have two oil companies, Exxon and Chevron, right? And one day you decide to sell all of your Exxon stock, and you sell it for a loss, and you think you're gonna get you think you're gonna get to take those losses out of your income taxes. If in the next 30 days you buy that stock again or a similar stock, you are unable to take those losses and apply them to your taxes, because that's what you call a wash sell, WASH, a wash. Like so if you sell it, make sure you want to sell it for 30 days, right? If you're selling something for a loss, take your loss, but don't just think that, oh, I'm going to sell my Chevron, so now I can buy my Shell or buy my Exxon. Don't work like that. You've decided that you're going to exit that sector or any similar company from that. So be very, very careful as to how that adjustment works with your income taxes. Sometimes it sucks because stuff is so volatile, but I really want to get it. And then you say to yourself, well, how much loss did I take? Was it, $50, $500, $5,000?
Right.
It depends. I mean, this can be it can be a reasonably good tax strategy, for sure. So just think about that.
Yeah, man. I when you told me, I never really, I never knew about that. So I thought about it like, I
Well,
didn't.
because you think that you took all these losses, and then you go and when you get to your taxes and they send you all your forms, and you're like, but I took more losses than that, and they're like, oh, that's
Now
what it is.
I'm not really an active trader. So like I don't trade in and out. I might do, man, how many trades I did in 2020? I probably did about 10,
Right.
like 10 or 15. So
But the reason why is because 2020 was one of the best years in the stock market, right?
yeah,
So when things are going up, no one's really like trading in and out because you're gonna start doing fine, right? The issue is when you're trading in the market and there's a lot of volatility in the market, and people start getting scared and start running to the. Man, let me tell you something. If your portfolio dipped 20%, 25%, the everything in your being is going to be like, let me just sell, let me just save my money, right?
I never I was saying that to say I never took a big loss on a stock before because I always just try to ride it out. And when I was in Delta at like this was pre-COVID, right? And then it dipped to like 28, and then I was like, I bought a lot at 28, and it dipped to like 19, and I'm like, oh, I'm down, right?
Yeah, but
But
you
then
stay
I started thinking,
right. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I bought a lot. I like doubled down, bought a lot at 19,
Mm-hmm.
and then I sold at 31, which,
Mm-hmm.
I made money on my 28 investment, obviously. And then on my 19, I made a lot. And then on I was in pre-COVID, I think it was like 40s or something like that. So I came out of that really good, but it was a tough choice to go in at 19 when I'm already in for 44, then 31, then then 28. To go in at 19 was really tough. But I
Right.
believed in the stock, and I thought it was going to be the best performer out of the airlines. So I kind of dodged a bit more there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, whenever you keep your money in one thing, you can't invest in something else. So, it's all about, perspective. I bet you that I can find some stock when you put into Delta and you just had it sit there for however long it was going to sit there. Some stock, you know, went up 1,500%, right? Some weirdo stock that nobody knew of, right? Fiverr or, Appian or one of these, whatever, right? And so I think that for an investor, it just comes into a knowing that not like there's no perfect answer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like, sure, we all, not we all, but many of us did well. Some people did better than others. Um, and in a year, some people will do worse than others. But it's really when you enter these trades. But I'm glad that you have more intestinal fortitude than I do, because if I see stuff going down, even now, it just takes a certain amount of discipline. You know what I mean? And I'm not the most disciplined person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really about emotions. And another thing is, especially at the space I'm in with my business, I'm doing more investing in my business and hiring people, and I just opened up my studio. Hey man, next time if you ever in Atlanta, man, you for sure got to come see my little space, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
I got it going on, man. It's small but mighty, man. So,
No,
um,
but that's the point. I was talking to my girlfriend today, and like I have all these boxes that are like all over the place, and I'm like, if this is not a small business, it's totally mom and pop, but you know, you know, I don't have a storefront, but all the things that I've been doing, for Hollywood. I mean, I in 9 months, I probably made, $1.2 million off of off of stuff. Look at this. What I don't show people, look at this. These are boxes. My house looks like it's a freaking. My house looks like it's a warehouse, right? You know, like I got face shields and gloves and look rapid COVID tests and stuff like that. But I'm like, some business designs can be really, really simple and generate a lot of revenue, and you don't have to overthink it. It didn't have to be like super sexy or whatever. And again, the older that I get, I'm like, man, I don't have to impress anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I want, like people like you inspire me, because you're young and you're getting into the game way earlier, than I did.
yeah,
And it's like you have the potential to be so much more, right? And I'm like, I just tell everyone, keep your overhead low, keep your simple, diversify your investments, and be careful and don't lose your head when the market goes down, And I think that you and I will be talking because I feel like there's going to be some turbulence soon, and
mhm.
so we're going to have to help people from just ejecting out of everything. You know what I mean? Or the FOMO that people have, the fear of missing out, because everything keeps on going up. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah. Well, I
You know,
mean, keeping your overhead, man. So the space I have now with my studio, it's a
mm-hmm.
space across the street. Well, right across the hall, basically. That
Mm-hmm.
is like it's like 125% um bigger, but it's only like double the price. So I'm thinking like, man, I can get a lot more space if I just double my overhead. And I'm thinking in the future, And my
That's right.
girlfriend was like, listen, you need to let outgrow the space that you're in now and stop trying to forecast,
Mm.
because sometimes you can forecast yourself into a rut. And I'm doing really well now with the business, but I mean, who's to say things may slow down for a few months and I may have to adjust. But she was just saying like, just keep it simple. And that's really hard when you're expanding and you're growing as a small business owner. Keeping it simple is really, really hard. Because you see all this money coming in and you're just thinking, oh, it's going to get better from here. But some days are humbling. Some days I don't make that much money. And then other days I made, 10 times as much as I
Welcome
made.
to being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
like, unpredictable, micro cash flow. Like you may know what you're going to get annually, but you don't know when it's going to come. And, that's why, like, again, just minimizing your overhead. Don't try to be all things to all people. Don't mission, because, if you're starting a business, these days, you know, um, until you have a solid business plan, don't go out and get other property until you know what you're like I said, you're, and I'm saying this because I think that some of the people who are watching this are not as experienced as you, right? And although I want you to inspire them to go out and to do these things, only do it when you have a business plan. Like this dude right here has a business plan. Like he knows what he's doing. Like don't do it just because, oh, I want to start a t-shirt tie-dye business, so I'm going to go and buy a storefront and not know how business goes. You know what I mean? So make sure that you are educated. And I always tell folks, I make myself available for anybody that wants to send over business plans, and
Yeah.
we chit see what's going on.
Yeah, man. I definitely had my share of issues. Just I signed a deal one time with a company. I love the company so much. I was like managing their social media and doing all that, and it was just got overwhelming, and I would just spread myself too thin, and I'm just like, look, let's get back to the basics. It's so funny how I was very profitable. My profit margins in one area was outstanding, and I'm trying to expand and create another revenue stream instead of maxing this one out. And I think a lot of people do that. They get multiple streams of income, and they think, I have to do 10 things well when really you got to do 3 or 4 really good and just try to max those out.
Right.
And then then go from there. So that was my issue. I definitely
No, I agree with you. I think that people try to do more things, but when there's only a certain amount of time, and when you try to do those things, you can't focus on determining what your higher business strategy is. And it takes time for you to kind of work through that, especially you haven't, worked and done your business before. So, it's all.
yeah, Doc, I for sure. I really appreciate you coming on here, man. I'm gonna have my things together next time because I'm gonna have
Oh,
my team member coming in with me.
yeah, it'll work.
I'm gonna have a lot. I'm gonna have everything on point, man.
Well,
I really
listen,
appreciate.
I appreciate you. I think your viewers appreciate you for all the information you've given them. So let's keep on. Let's keep on keeping the community invested. All right.
For
But
sure.
all right, brother. I'll check you later, my man.
All right.